Have you ever had an experience with black-eyed children? If so, what's your paranormal story about them? Last Friday I was home alone and at around 11 p.m., I was watching YouTube videos up in my room when I heard a knock at my door. I knew nobody was supposed to be over, so I just ignored it. They then started ringing my doorbell, so I got up and went to the front door. There is usually a light at my front door that's on, but it seemed to be burned out, but even in the dim light, I could see that it was two kids who looked no older than 8. I opened the first door and I asked the kids what they were doing. It was a boy and a girl. The girl asked, "May we come in and use your phone? We got lost and can't find our way back home." I mean, it was two kids, so I think anyone would say yes, but something felt wrong. I couldn't figure out what it was, and I still don't know why I didn't let them in. The light at the front porch then flickered on for maybe a second or two, but when I looked at the kids, I could see their eyes. They were pitch black. I took a step back and slammed the door shut, locking it. They kept banging on the door for maybe 5 more minutes. It sounded like the door was going to fly off the hinges any second, but then it finally stopped. I didn't get any sleep that night, and I haven't really slept well since. I grew up in West Texas, served in the military, 2011-15. Recently turned 27 and came across a video on YouTube, Black-Eyed Children, which gave me the chills. I don't have much fear besides arachnids grossing me out. My fight or flight response has been in fight mode in my favor when triggered, for the most part. At 10 years, I had my first paranormal experience. Around the evening, my parents were out at a dance, and I was left with my 2 older brothers who were playing video games in the other room. I was watching Dexter's Laboratory sitting crisscross in the middle of the living room. I had this feeling like somebody was watching me, and by this time, it was dark outside. In the corner of my eye was the window and the curtains draped down like an upside-down V. Normally, light from inside the house would reflect back in the window, but there was a baby with pitched black eyes looking directly at me. I turned white and my response was to take flight. I ran as fast as I could to my brothers in pure terror, crying my eyes out. Up till that point is my only memory of it. I never recalled what my brothers did, and I have yet to bring it up to their attention. That memory has been clear as day for me ever since, and have had more interest with the paranormal. I'm not sure if that is normal after having a traumatic experience, but I have interests on going ghost hunting in different places. I without a doubt can't stand it when people mention ghosts are not real. I would hate to make up such stories. I grew up a latchkey kid. Parents not home until after 5 and so on. One day after school, 10 years old, I was sitting at the dining room table doing homework when I hear a very firm knock at the door. Like the kind that cops do. Our elderly neighbor knocked like this when he would come over for whatever reason, so I got up to answer. I was very taught, learned and trusted by my father to have access and use my shotgun if ever necessary for self-defense. I was also as well versed in self-defense as much as a kid could be, and uncommonly fearless. I opened the door to reveal what appeared to be an 8-year-old boy with sandy blonde hair looking straight down. He was wearing a yellowish but sullied shirt under a gray zip-up hoodie which was dirty as well. It was late spring in the south. I knew most nearly all the kids our age in our neighborhood and from our school, but did not recognize him at all. Not relegating myself as the pinnacle of knowing everyone, I figured he was a friend of one of my neighborhood friends' little brother, or something like that. I said, "Hi, can I help you?" With a very assertive tone, he said, "Let me in, I need something to eat." Baffled by this kid's gall, I said, "Do I know you?" When this time, he barked the same thing with a little more gusto. Affect, flat, empathic reasoning, flat. Something was very weird about this kid. I asked if I needed to call his mom or anything, same answer. So, then I asked if he was friends of so-and-so, no response. I tried to make a little bit of further small talk with him, chummily tapping him on the shoulder. He was literally as hard as steel. The whole time, his gaze was fixed downward, so I leaned in to get a look in his eyes. His scleras were fleeting dark purple, almost black. I asked him if he had been in a fight, no answer. By this time, my alert sensors were up and running, thinking domestic abuse, by his seemingly sullen and brash attitude, etc. I started over to get some crackers, and on the way, an alarm went off in my head, and thought. Why is his entire orbital area not the same color as his eye? After grabbing the crackers and turning to further question him, in mid-sentence, I looked again at the doorway. Gone. That admittedly would have been easy to do in my area, but now I could hear this think kid in my head asking someone else, why didn't it work? It didn't work. I just then brushed off as a weird experience. Fast forward to 2014. I was 39, bored AF one night, so I decided to read about this black-eyed kid phenom. Then the memory hit me like an anvil. I was freaked the flurbo out. Haven't been the same since. Luckily, I had imparted this to a friend when it happened, and he does remember telling this story. To start things off, I should mention that this was the third time that I had actually gone to the road. And I had read several accounts of a little girl being seen on the road. This piqued my curiosity. Due to doing some research on black-eyed children, I found out that they prefer rural area, which this road is in. So me and two of my fellow investigators Josh and Samuel went to the road. This was Samuel's first time going to the road, and at this point, the only really big event that happened to us was just a week before we got a voice over the spirit box, which was very clear yelling out spirits to the question, "Is there anything on this road?" So we were excited and we did a little research on the road to figure out what exactly else is on the road. This is when we found out about the Triple K activity and the witchcraft and satanic rituals being performed on the road. So once all three of us got there, we parked and start heading down the road. At this point, we had never made it to the end of the road. Usually we made it not even to the forest and would leave. This time, we made it into the forested part of the road and decided to turn around. So far that night, the only weird thing that we couldn't explain was Samuel had seen what he thought was a shadow figure following us in the woods, but neither Josh nor I saw this figure. So we decided to go back to the cars because Samuel was starting to freak out just a little bit. We got the area of the road that we like to call the spirit box hotspot. It's right near the beginning of the road, and it's where we get our best spirit box sessions. I had asked if they would be okay if we did a spirit box session there, because that is where we had gotten the clear voice the last week. They said yes, so I booted up the spirit box. I don't know what led me to ask the question, but I did. The question being, does anyone on this road know of the entities called black-eyed children? We got an answer almost immediately. The answer was a simple one-word answer that I would have just ignored if it wasn't so clear. That answer was, "Yeah," in a young adult male voice that at this point, we had never heard. We all looked at each other with excitement and concern. Then I asked the second question. Are there any black-eyed children on or near the road? Again immediately, we got the answer back. Yep, two. Same young adult male voice, so we knew it wasn't interference. The fact that it was immediately after I had asked a question led to the fact that this was not interference. At this point, Josh and Samuel were starting to freak out. I was strangely calm for some reason. As they were telling me that we needed to end the spirit box session and head back to the cars, I asked my third and final question. Are there any black-eyed children around us right now? Yep, two. After we had got that answer from the trees behind us, there were no houses around, and it was about 2 a.m., we heard children laughing. We ended the spirit box session, and we booked it back to the cars. When we could see the cars, we noticed that both Josh's and my cars were fogged up from the inside. The scariest thing of all was what's on Josh's rear windshield when a handprint was made. The handprint was larger than any of our hands, and there was no one else on the road. We had kept a careful eye to see if anybody had driven on the road or started walking on the road, and there was no one. It also looked like it had claws on the handprint. On my rear windshield, written there was, "Leave." At this point, all three of us were freaking out. I was trying to come up with a logical explanation on why we heard children laughing and the windows being written on. As we were trying to calm each other down and figure things out, we heard a child from the woods in front of where our cars were parked call a loud hello. This froze us in our tracks. As we were trying to find the source of the hello, we started to notice little figures darting between the trees. I don't know what drove us to do what we did next, and I know it was stupid, but instead of getting into our cars and driving away, we ran back onto the road. We didn't get too far onto the road when we heard something hit against one of our cars. It sounded as if something had jumped onto one of our cars. Without thinking, we ran back to the cars. When we got there, we saw nothing, no damages. Everything had just stopped. This time, we were smart, and we got back into our cars, and we drove off as fast as we could away from the road. Now there is a little girl who is seen on the road. I know she is not a black-eyed child. From the day that I am posting this, I have officially seen her once. What we experienced that night, I cannot explain scientifically. But I am pretty convinced they were black-eyed children, and to this day, I still hold myself lucky to be alive. So, I totally forgot about this happening until my mom brought it up at dinner tonight, and now it's 9:30 at night, and I'm scared all over again. This was back in high school, either my freshman or sophomore year. I missed the bus and I didn't have a car at the time, so my mom had to drive me to school. The road in my tiny neighborhood, more like a glorified cul-de-sac, or however you spell it, was off of a long rural stretch that only had one equally tiny other neighborhood and a few houses here and there. It was 6 a.m. or something and still dark outside, and it was cold. As we're pulling out of our neighborhood, my mom and I both saw these 3 children in blue and white private school uniforms standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder at the entrance of the neighborhood on the sidewalk. It was either 2 girls and 1 boy, or 2 boys and 1 girl. I don't remember the ratio, but the girls wore a blue and white skirt dress outfit, and the boy wore a blue short-sleeved shirt with khaki shorts. This was weird for a few reasons. 1. It was 40 degrees outside. They looked like they were dressed for the summer, and they didn't even wear coats or anything. Secondly, there were 2 schools in the area, but not a private school till the next town over, and blue and white weren't the school's uniform colors. Third, what young kids just stand there in a single file line, not doing anything but standing? No joshing around, no nothing. Yeah, right. Lastly, this wasn't where the bus stop was. It was a few blocks down. Just a sprinkle of extra creepy on top for hex and giggles, there wasn't any streetlights. They were just standing in the dark. Not doing jack except being creepy as heck, I guess. They were on the corner on the right, closest to the passenger's side where I was obviously sitting. And of course we were turning right. As we got closer, I thought at first they didn't have faces, but it was just too shadowy and dark out, and the headlights only shone under their shoulders, which is how I can remember the outfits so vividly. Then we got closer and I was relieved to see they had faces, but then got completely freaked all over again when I saw their eyes were all black. Like Supernatural Sam and Dean fighting demons, all black. My mom saw it before I did and she put the pedal to the metal and hightailed it out of there. I remember trying to look back and see them, but I couldn't since it was too dark. My mom didn't go back home till the sun rose, and it was bright enough to not be scared. Of course nobody believed me at school, and my siblings thought we were full of it, but we know what we saw. We never saw them again after that though. I thought they were ghosts, but a few months after that, I heard about black-eyed children on YouTube or something and made the connection. We moved shortly after that due to unrelated reasons. This was 3 to 4 years ago, and I had blissfully forgotten about it until my mom said, "Hey, remember when?" And now I want to die. I hope my irrational anxieties and fear around children that are small enough for me to punt across a soccer field is amusing at least.